I don't know what's in the air lately, but the movies I have seen in theaters recently have been some of the best films I've watched in the last couple of years.
No, 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 not you, Seamus.
This past weekend, I was lucky enough to see an early screening of Sean Baker's most recent film, Anora, which I didn't know until my friend told me as we were in line was the first American film to win the Palme d'Or in the last 13 years. So I did have high expectations, or at least I knew I was going to see a really good movie. But I watched an entirely different film than I was expecting. I know I just said the same exact thing with The Substance, but this trailer sells a whole different story than what the movie actually was. I thought this was going to be a runaway love, crime-filled adventure, and that idea was stripped away pretty quickly into the movie as it turned into a full-on comedy with some very blunt doses of reality. Now, before I explain exactly what I mean, I do want to point out that I don't have the best knowledge of Sean Baker's storytelling style. I've only seen The Florida Project, which I loved, and from what my friends have told me, he likes to shed light on unorthodox, unrepresented characters in a very real-life, behind-the-curtains way, as if he takes off the rose-colored glasses of what stories can be. Obviously, The Florida Project is a great example of this, and Anora is about a stripper who gets hired by a rich Russian kid as a sex worker. It's just not as glamorous as most of the setups of films that we see. Now, it didn't feel like it was as similar to The Florida Project in its style, maybe it's closer to his other work, but it did have some pretty similar dialogue and a lot of harsh, crass lines and moments. I guess let's just jump right in while we are here, but the dialogue in Anora felt very realistic. It's like conversations you have with friends in the way that there's no filter. It's not pretty, it's not well spoken, people say what they mean and aren't afraid to say, well, whatever they actually feel. And this made the comedy aspects so much better. And I know this is going to sound obvious, but it also feels like a film made in today's time. Whether it's what they say, how they say it, or the style of comedy, it feels very timely. I feel like a lot of humor today is very deadpan, situational, very dark, or sometimes even facetious. Not necessarily saying the worst thing possible for a reaction, but we are so desensitized that touchy subjects are something we can comment on or even make jokes about. And this is kind of similar to my point about how the movie is brash. There's just no filter. And this is very much paralleled by the storytelling of the hilarious and dark second half. I'm gonna do my best to not spoil this, by the way, but there might be some giveaways to the story, so enter at your own risk. But I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible. I don't think what I will say will alter your experience that much unless you really appreciate surprises. But if you were turned away by the trailer or intrigued, just know that you are getting something different and, in my opinion, way better and more compelling. So the first third of the movie is almost like a music video. There's a lot of partying, some great music choices, drugs, sex, fun, and just comes at you like a montage of excitement. It is the story you were expecting, but honestly, it was my least favorite part of the movie. And when our two main characters meet and start to become closer, at least for me, it did feel like there was some sort of connection. As they get married in Vegas after knowing each other for only 2 weeks, part of me kinda saw the love. This is in the trailer, by the way. But it's made in a way that makes you feel that love. It's the rose-colored glasses, the fantasy element of movies. This would never actually happen or work out, but in the movies it does. Love at first sight and all that jazz. It's honestly like a drug. Everything seems perfect, you are happier, colors are brighter, everything has a veil of beauty. Then the rest of the movie is the come down, the harsh reality check. Instead of watching that magical adventure, you get an unexpected ragtag group of characters that have to take a grueling, boring journey. But because of the sheer ridiculousness of the situation and the amazing delivery of lines, it makes for over an hour of just joke after joke, gag after gag. I mean, the two Russian/Armenian workers are just so funny I can't even describe it. Again, it is so deadpan and some of the best situational humor. It's better than a lot of comedy movies today. But something like The Hangover, which takes a similar we have to go across the city to find this guy scenario, makes the actual hunt seem so wild and wacky, when in reality it would be a drag. Anora shows you the reality of what this hunt would be like, going off unhelpful leads, trying any option, and a whole lot of waiting. And as the tension keeps building from more and more boredom, distress, and agony, it gets released in these tight little bursts of energy, again leading to some hilarious moments. But all of this leads me to the main point I'm trying to make and why I appreciated the film so much. Anora stripped away the fantasy aspect of movies. There's no magic, no fairy tale ending, and it operated like a realistic story. as if there were cameras in the room and these were real people, although the setup itself is still pretty unorthodox. It's not as real as, say, the Florida Project, which feels more like documentary-esque. But the relationship, the core of the movie, is all based on fundamental flaws. It's fake. Just like so many of these fast fantasy love stories, in reality it would never work out like this. And again, the movie makes you feel like it's going one way, it's the drug trip, then they strip it down to the core as they come down to reality. What seems like a sweet charming guy who happens to have come into a lot of money is an immature brat who just wants to have fun. He viewed this relationship, if that's what we're calling it, as something he could just have and throw away as he pleases with his endless supply of money. Now you might be thinking, yeah, obviously he's a rich nepo baby, but because of the movie magic in the first third and what we are accustomed to with the love story films, at least for me there was part of me that thought, oh okay, they're kinda cute together. But even down to the color and cinematography, all the life is completely sucked out of it when things get serious. And the movie constantly keeps doing this as the main character Anora gets these glimpses of hope that keep being ripped away from her. Later on in the movie, she has a scene where she comes up with a plan to take the Russian kid and his family down and use the sham marriage as a way to walk away with half of his money. You know, get her get back. The audience in the theater damn near all stood up as we were cheering so loud for her. She was finally gonna win and come out on top. And within seconds, they are like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. Instead of seeing her walk away in the sunset victorious, again, what would be movie magic, the film says, no, that's not how these things really work out. This isn't a fantasy. And then one of the Russian/Armenian bodyguards, the guy who you could never really tell his intentions even though he kinda seemed nice, ends up turning into the most lovable character. And there's this moment where you think they are gonna fall in love. The music, the look they give, the movie magic, even though in reality it's ridiculous, you kind of now want this to happen. And then boom, reality. This can't happen either. But all of this, the harsh reality checks, the absence of movie magic, the great and unique story, the comedy, and the heartbreak, none of this works without the convincing and amazing performance from Mikey Madison. She is absolutely incredible. I genuinely believe she deserves and could win an Oscar for her role. She is the movie. Well, yeah, her name is literally the title, but you know what I mean. And the incredible script from Sean Baker allowed for her to go all out, leaving all emotions on the table while never feeling too over the top, even though she kind of needed to be over the top. And she plays the New York role just so well. Personally, it's hard for me to describe performances because outside of great, convincing, and emotional, there's not a lot of other wording I can use. Like, it's just really, really great. But Mikey Madison as Anora just stays with you after you leave. It's almost like you really got to know her character after 2 hours and some change. You feel bad for her, you root for her, and you really want to see where she goes from here. And the ending of the film just cements this whole journey perfectly. It's raw, emotional, almost too hard-hitting while you're just kind of left there with your jaw on the floor as you can't help but cheer for her. The actress, I mean, because the character of Anora doesn't end in the best spot, we'll say. But I don't want to talk about the ending too much because it's something you just have to see for yourself. It is kind of uncomfortable, but in a very strategic and effective way. But needless to say, Mikey Madison is an up-and-coming star. Anything she is in from here on out, I am seated. There's a quote towards the end of the movie that I think summarizes her role along with the purpose of the entire film very well. Her name is Anora, but she tells everyone to call her Annie. The person she is trying to present, whether it's to sell herself to potential clients at the club, or to fit into this new lavish rich lifestyle she was thrust upon. That's Annie. It's almost like a mask that she wears with a smile on it. And the bodyguard says to her, I like Anora more than Annie. Anora is who she really is. It's not glamorous and perfect, it's raw and authentic. Anora is the real her. The one who says what she wants, says how she feels, the one who stands up for herself, and the one who wears her emotions and personality on her sleeve. The movie magic, all the fantasy, that's when she is Annie. But the one we connect with, the realness of the film, that's all Anora. I really liked how they told this story. Aside from all the amazing comedy, the emotional moments, the fantastic ending, and the uniqueness of the film, I just really love the authenticity. We can't always have the fantasy. Sometimes we need to be reminded that fiction is fiction, and the real world is much more direct, harsh, passionate, and stripped down. And I think a majority of the times there's more beauty in that. It seems like this is a common theme with Baker's work and what he tries to explore with his films. And with this one, he nailed it on the head. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5, and to summarize all my thoughts with one quote, I liked Anora a lot more than I liked Annie.